Ya minna, Carl from Purple Moose Place. Today I've got another Japanese game for you. I'm going to be taking a look at Otaru 1899 from designer Takeo Yamada and publisher Uchibacoya Games. This is a follow-up to their previous game Sapporo 1876, and it sort of is a reimagining or re-implementation of that game, and it actually can also be combined with that game to turn the normal two-player experience into a 3 to 4 player game as well. But more importantly, with the release of Otaru 1899, they've also now included a small solo Automa or AI expansion as well. So this is a sort of action selection game where you're selecting a different action on each turn, and then your opponents all get to follow after the exact same action that you did. Very tight sort of resource management style game where you're using resources to get new workers, to unlock different locations where you can place those workers to get new abilities, and ultimately to place your workers out in sort of set collection or goal-based scoring, both mid-game and at the end of the game. With that said, let's head down to the table to see how this one plays, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. To set up a solo game of Otaru 1899, begin by placing out the game board on the table. Now it's worth noting that the game board is double-sided, with one side here showing the 2-player side of the board and the other side here for 3 and 4 player. This 3 and 4 player actually only works if you also have the previous game Sapporo that sort of connects with this into a larger game. So for the solo mode, we will be playing with the 2-player side of the board like that. Next, to continue setting up the main board, you need to place out the tracker of the 2 tracks here, the harvest track and the sort of settlement of account track at the top there, placing out the marker that matches each of those like that. We're also going to take this action pawn, and for at the beginning, just set it in the center of the action area on the board. Then finally, we're going to need to set up this sort of train station area over here with sort of end game scoring goals. These 6 influential people spaces and these 6 building spaces as well. So starting here with the people, we're simply going to take the tiles representing those influential people, give those a good shuffle, and then place out 6 of them onto the board. And I'll explain what they do later when we get into gameplay. Then doing the exact same thing for the buildings down here at the bottom, taking the building tiles, giving those a shuffle, and then placing out 6 of those on the board as well. And then finally, for the endgame scoring goal tiles, you'll notice that there are 4 different types, A, B, C, and D. And for your first few games, you're going to use 1A, 1B, and 1C. There are 2 of each in the box. But once you've played the game a few times, which I have at this point, you're going to simply take all 8, means all 2 of each of the 4 types, shuffle them out, and just choose 3 at random to place on the board. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. And like that, we are all set up for the main board. So now I need to go ahead and set up my own player area as well, which starts by placing out one of these player boards like this. I'm just going to set that down here, leaving a bit of space down here for some tiles and some space over here as well. Then I need to take all of the worker pieces in my color as well as the score marker. The score marker will get placed on the 0 space of the score track, and I will fill in these 6 locations with 1 worker each, and the remaining 3 workers will get placed here in my sort of active worker area. Next, I need to place out one of these fishing boats in my player area as well. And then finally, I'm going to deal myself 2 of these sort of starting asset cards and select 1 for gameplay. I'll deal those 2 out right now, but I'll explain what they are and why I'm selecting what I'm selecting once I've done sort of the overview of how the game plays out, because it'll make more sense at that point. So here are my 2 potential starting asset tiles. I'll place those over here for now, and again, we'll come back to those when I get into how gameplay works. And then finally, because I am playing solo, I do need to set up the solo opponent, Inazo. And the rules do suggest that Inazo also gets a player board, but Inazo starts with all of their workers available to them. They will never do any of this sort of harvesting at the top. They will never get resources, they will never get money. So realistically, there's no real reason for them to have a player board. So instead, I'm simply going to place their available worker pool here, like that. And then the rest of the setup for the solo mode is going to depend on the difficulty level. If you're playing on easy or normal, you're going to remove the 3 solo cards with the number 3 printed in the corner. If I was playing on hard, which I won't be, you would instead be removing the cards with the 1 in the corner. So those 3 cards are going to go back into the box. And then I'll take the remaining cards, 3 1s and 3 2s, give those a shuffle, placing them out here and turning over the top card as their sort of starting focus. And I'll explain what that means again as we get into gameplay. But then finally, the last thing to do is, if I'm playing easy mode, that's all that needs to be done. Playing normal mode, I'm going to start Inazo with a starting score of 15 points. And were I playing hard, they would also be scoring that, or starting with that 15 points, except that they'd be having the cards with the number 3 rather than the number 1 in their deck. And with that, we're all set up for gameplay, except that I'm going to be placing out these money tokens in 1s and 5s over here to the side, as well as my resource pool, which consists of cows, sheep, rice, and wheat. And I'll place those over here as well. And with that, we are all set up for a solo play of Otaru 1899. So Otaru 1899 is going to play out over a series of rounds, alternating back and forth between myself taking an action and the AI player taking an action. But in this game, we also follow each other and do the same action that the other person has selected. And this is going to continue until we've done a total of 5 events in the game. And you can see based on these 2 tracks, there are 2 different kinds of events that are going to happen. This top track, sort of the settlement of accounts track, is all going to be money-based. And this bottom track, this kind of harvest track, is all going to be based on resources. And you'll see here we've got harvest events and settling of account events. And again, when a total of 5 of those have been triggered, the game will instantly end and we'll go into the final scoring. So on a turn, again, taking turns back and forth with the AI, I'm going to take this action pawn and select one of the 4 available actions, taking that action, and after that, the AI will follow and also take that action. And then on the AI's turn, they will select an action, and I will follow that action, and we'll go back and forth like that. Anytime I take one of these 2 yellow actions, these are the harvest actions, and that will push this up 1 space. And anytime I take one of these blue actions, these are sort of the financial money-based actions, which will push this blue marker up the track. And again, on any turn that we land on one of these event spaces, at the end of that round, that event will be triggered. So the 4 sort of locations and actions that can be taken are going to the agricultural school to educate our students, in which case we will be moving workers from our sort of school area here into our available worker pool here. And I'll explain in more detail how the actions work in just a second. I just want to go through the 4 actions. And again, that's a harvest action, which would push that up 1. Down here at Kaitakushi Mura, or Kaitakushi Village, we're going to be taking a sort of development action. And what that means is we're going to be assigning workers here to develop different areas of our field, allowing us to sort of generate different kinds of resources moving forward. And we can always place 1 worker in each of these 4 different resource tracks. And after they've been placed, instead of placing them out, we'll instead be moving them up, sort of improving the amount of resources we'll be getting of that type. And again, that is another harvest action which would drive that marker up. The next action is coming here to Chuo Otaru Station, where we're going to be sending workers out by train to a variety of different places to sort of grow our business reach or our sort of fame in the area through our business connections. And basically what that means is we're going to be placing our workers into these locations on the train tracks, and those workers are going to stay in those locations for the rest of the game. And then finally, the 4th action is the church, the Christian church. And here is where we're going to go to sort of make investments, either making investments in these sort of important people or investments in buildings. And these important people are going to trigger basically scoring conditions instantly at the time that we buy or invest in that person. And the buildings down here are basically going to give us worker placement spaces that we get that we can later send workers to trigger a variety of different abilities. And again, both the station and the church are going to be driving this sort of financial-based track, triggering this settlement of accounts as it goes up. And the way that all of these actions are going to be taken is by using action points. You can see that each of the different actions has two different resource types associated with it. So here I've got rice and cows at the school, wheat and rice at the sort of village or the development of crops, farmland area. I've got cows and sheep at the station, and I've got sheep and wheat at the church. And what that means is when I go to that location, I can spend as many of those resources as I'd like to convert them into action points as printed. So for example, at the station, if I spend one cow, I would get 3 action points. And for each sheep I'd spend, I'd get 2 action points. In addition, we will be collecting money throughout the game. And I did just realize at the start of the game, I should have placed out 1 money in each of those locations, or 1 yen, basically, in each of those locations. And this money, as we collect it, can be spent as a sort of wild resource, not with any kind of multiplier, simply as a 1 action point per 1 yen that is spent on any action. Finally, in addition to spending resources and money on actions, we also have this fishing boat down here that you can see says +1 AP. This is a worker placement location that can hold any number of workers, and every time I place a worker on this location, I will get an additional 1 action point for whatever action I'm taking at that time. So when we are going to the school, we're going to be spending action points as printed on the board, working from the sort of bottom right up to the top left, so right, left, right, left, right, left, going up. And the amount of action points it costs for each student is printed here. So the first row costs 2 per worker, then the next is 3 per worker, and following is 3 per worker. And every time I add one of these into my player area, I'm going to get whatever it shows next to that location. So for the first row, I would get 1 yen per worker. The second row, again, 1 yen per worker. And then these other things are point values or fame points that we're going to receive at the end of the game if I've managed to empty that row. So if I've managed to empty this row, I'll get 3 points. If I've managed to empty this row at the end of the game, I'd get 6 points. And here this says, once they're all empty, if I take another action at that school, for every 3 action points I spend, I would score 2 points. Then for the development action, again, the cost is as printed here. So to place a worker out in the first spot is always going to cost 3 action points. And then moving up will be varied depending on where I'm going. So here would be 2, 3, 4, and so on to move to that location. And it's worth mentioning when getting these students and when doing these development actions, I can take as many of those actions in a single turn as I want to, so long as I have the resources, money, and the fishing boat workers to pay for the action points needed to take those actions. For the station, we're going to be paying the action points as printed on the location that we want to place our worker in. But it's worth noting that for this location as well as this location, I can only take 1 action per turn. So I can only place in 1 location on any given turn. And if I spend more than what I need for a specific space, those action points are simply wasted for that turn. Likewise, when I'm talking about this action in just a minute, same thing. I can only buy 1 of these tiles, and any additional action points I've spent will simply be forfeit for that turn. So placing in the station is going to be a unique one because nothing happens when I place in the station. Placing in the station is only going to relate to the settlement of accounts action, as well as the sort of endgame scoring action as well. And what that means is every time I trigger a settlement of accounts action, I'm going to look at each of the 3 columns. And whichever of us has the most workers in that column is going to score the number of points at the bottom of that column. So 4 points, 5 points, 6 points. And if we are ever tied for the number of pieces in a column, whoever is closer to the top means whoever has paid the most action points to be there will score those points. And that, again, is going to trigger every time we trigger one of those settlement of accounts actions. And I'm going to pause there for just a second because I should have mentioned when we were talking about development, the harvest action is going to basically do the same kind of thing except for resources. So I'm going to get a number of resources equal to the location of my workers on this board whenever that harvest action is triggered. So coming back over here for a minute, anytime we trigger a settlement of account action or event, we're going to score based on the columns. And then at the end of the game, we're going to score points based on the rows. Except now that we don't necessarily care about the number of workers. Anyone who has a worker in those rows is going to look at these conditions. And whoever has sort of fulfilled that condition more will score 5 points. So let me show you the 3 conditions we are working with right now. This one is a little bit special because this one is both for Otaru and Sapporo. We're only looking at these people with lightning bolts. Those are the instant activated sort of influential people that you can see on the board here. And whoever has the most of those at the end of the game will score points, except that the AI doesn't really count them. Instead, they're going to be simply using the number as printed. I don't know if you can see that, as printed on this tile. So the AI will have a value of 2. So I need to have at least 2 or more of those people if I'm going to score that row, or at least score the maximum points for that row. The next one here says the number of workers in my worker area. So we're going to count the number of workers I have here at the end of the game. And again, the AI starts with, or always has 2. So I need to have at least 2 or more if I'm going to get the maximum points from that one. And then finally, this one here is going to be looking at workers at the top of each of the tracks. So if I'm in the second space in a track, I will score 1 point. The top track, I'll score 2 points. And we're going to total up those points. And whoever has the most will get the 5 points. So the AI for this one is going to start with a point score or a total of 4 on this token. So again, I need to have a worker, or the AI as well, needs to have a worker in that row in order to be sort of in the running for the points from that marker. And again, whoever has the most will score 5. And this is true for both here and here. Whoever has the second most, assuming the AI does have one, or I have one and I don't have the most, or they don't have the most, will score half of those point values rounded down. So the second here, when we trigger settlement of accounts, would get 2, 2, and 3 points. And again, at the end of the game, whoever is second place would score 2 points for each of the rows that they're competing in as well. And then finally, the last location is the church, where I'm going to be getting these tiles. And again, I can only get 1 on any given turn, paying the action points as printed here. So 7, 8, 9, 6, 6, 7, 3, 2, 2, 4, 3, 4, like that, in order to get an instant score from one of these, or to get a sort of worker placement spot that I can use in future rounds in order to get some kind of special ability. And I'm going to mention this here as I'm talking about the worker placement spots. When I place a worker on that spot, they stay there until we trigger one of these harvest actions. At the end of any harvest action, we'll, for free, be able to return any one worker from any location we've placed into back into our available pool. Any more workers that we'd like to return from those spaces to the board will cost 1 yen per worker to bring back to our board. So let me walk you through what these 6 people do and what these 6 locations do, and then we'll go ahead and get into gameplay. This first person here says that if I have at least 2, 3, or 4 building tiles, I would score 6, 9, or 15 points. So depending on when I get this tile, I'll look at the number of buildings I have and score 6, 9, or 15 based on 2, 3, or 4 buildings. Next, this one says immediately score 6 points and then return all of the workers on the boat, the fishing boat, back to my worker area or available worker area. This one says I'm going to look at the 4 rows in my sort of development area, and I'm going to count the number of workers that have made it all the way to the top of the track. And if I have 1, 2, 3, or 4 workers at the top of the track, I'm going to score 6, 8, 10, or 12 points for that. Next, looking at the workers in my available worker pool, if I have 2, 3, or 4, I will get 5, 8, or 12 points when I get this tile. Next one here says the AP, after paying the action points, these 6 action points to get this tile, any remaining wheat or rice or sheep or cows will score, if I have at least one of each of those 4 things, then I will score 8 points. And then finally, this one here says, at the station, at Chuo Otaru Station, I'm going to count the number of workers that are placed there. And if I have at least 1, 2, or 3, I will score 5, 7, or 9 points for that. So these are going to sort of give me in-game goals that I can focus on to get extra points. And now looking at the 6 different worker placement spots. All right, so here we've got, if I place a worker on here, I get money equal to the number of sheep that I have at that time. This one gets me 1 resource of my choice for every development column that has no worker in it yet. This one's going to get me money for the number of workers I have placed at the station at that time. This one gets me 1 resource of my choice for every column that has the worker in the sort of highest spot in that track. This one, I get to pay 1 coin or 1 yen, and by doing so, I get to take an additional action at one of these 2 locations. So I told you before, I can only ever place in 1 space here or buy 1 thing here, but if I had this location, I could place a worker here and pay a coin to take a second action at that place. And then finally, this one gets me 1 coin per cow that I have at that point when I activate that location. Actually, rechecking the rules on this one where I can pay 1 money to send to the station or to buy one of the tiles. This actually happens at any time I can do that, and only myself gets to take 1 of those actions. And when I do this, I can spend any resource at a cost or sort of at 2 action points per resource value, and money, of course, continues to be 1 per 1 AP. So that's actually a little bit stronger than I said. So that's basically the flow of the game. We're going to alternate taking turns, remembering whatever action I take, the AI will also take after I do. And whatever action AI takes, I will also take that action after they do. And it's worth reiterating here, I wasn't clear on this before, I can only use buildings on my own turn when I'm the one selecting the action and not when the AI selects the action. The only thing left to explain is how the AI works. The AI always has a card showing. Anytime the AI or myself selects one of the harvest actions, they will do absolutely nothing. Sorry, harvest or the agricultural school action, they will do absolutely nothing. But when they use either of these actions, they will try to use whatever action points are shown on the card to the sort of max value possible. So they'll do whatever they can with that point to do the best thing they can do. And some of these cards will have multiple action point values on it, in which case that just means that they will take that action multiple times, again trying to maximize whatever they can do with those AP as printed. Then, after they've taken either of those actions, they'll simply turn over the next card, and that will be what they use for the next time they take that same action. So finally, before getting into gameplay, I just want to point out scoring. For me, I'll be scoring based on any empty rows here at the school. I'll be scoring if I get any workers to the top 2 rows here at 2 points or 3 points, depending on where they end up. I will have already scored points mid-game from any of these people that I've invested in. I will have already scored any points from these columns, from any of these settlement of account actions. And then finally, I will score points from these 3 columns at the end of the game as well. In addition, any leftover money or resources will score 1 point for every 2 that I have. And that means if I have 5 yen at the end of the game, that will count as 5 individual pieces. So for every 2 pieces of money or resource that I have, I score 1 point. And then finally, for any worker I have left in my available pool at the end of the game, we'll score 1 point per worker. And the AI is also going to be scoring based on these columns, based on these rows. But since they don't get resources, they don't really spend things in the same way that I do. They're instead going to be scoring simply based on the number of cards that they've collected throughout the game. And that means they score 6 points for each of the people that they've collected and 3 points for each of the buildings that they've collected at the end of the game. So with that, that should be enough to understand how the game works. I may not have done the best job as sort of the flow of how I was talking about it, and there may be things that are still a little confusing, so hopefully through my gameplay, things will get a little bit clearer. Because there is one thing I just realized I didn't quite mention, is that when we select an action, that same action cannot be selected again. You need to select a different action. And also when it's the AI's turn to select an action, they will always select the action that has the most money on it at that time. And also, anytime someone selects an action, the 2 adjacent actions to that action will get 1 yen placed on each of them. And you'll see how all that works as I play. Also, if any of these have the same amount of money on it, the AI will always choose from this location and then clockwise around the circle. But with that, let's go ahead and get into gameplay. But first, I need to select my tile for the game, or my starting assets. And the way that this works is, first, you're going to see which resources I'm going to start with. So I'll always start with the resources and money as printed here, plus 1 additional resource of my choice for that game. So here I would get 1 wheat, 1 rice, 1 cow, and 1 something of my choice, plus 2 money. And here I'd get 1 wheat, 2 rice, 1 sheep, and 1 money, plus 1 of my choice. But the other thing this does is it tells me which of my sort of development tracks I'm going to start with a worker on. But it's also going to give me some kind of special ability or something special that I get for that game. So this one says that I start with my cow development not on the first space, but on the second space. It's going to be forward 1, which means that I'll automatically be getting 1 cow and 1 money per harvest rather than just a single cow. So it gives me sort of 1 quick boost at the beginning of the game, and that's all that that does. This one instead says that if I place a worker here, you'll see that symbol there means it's a worker placement card, and that means I need to place a worker there. If I place a worker there, I can pay 1 yen to receive 1 rice resource, which could be really, really helpful. And I start with more money than I do here, but also less resources. So either I'm going to have extra cows, or I'm going to have the ability to buy rice. And looking at what that means, rice is good at getting workers and harvesting or increasing this thing. Cows are good at getting workers and placing at the train station, both of which is important in this game. I'm going to be competing here, so cows is important. But I also see this is scoring points for workers on worker placement spots. This is scoring for workers at max spaces on here. This is scoring for workers in my available area. There's lots of stuff scoring on workers. So I'm going to prioritize the workers, which means I'm going to prioritize that rice. So I am going to take that tile as my starting asset, which means I start with 1 wheat, 1 rice, 1 cow, 2 yen, and then I get to select 1 thing of my choice, 1 resource of my choice, and from this blue symbol here means I start with 1 worker on this sheep space like that. And looking at what I've got rice, I've got wheat, I've got cow. So I could take a sheep just to have something different. I could have more cow to help place out here. Sheep is good at getting me stuff here, but yeah, I don't know. If I focus on that for 2 AP, I've got a wheat there already. I think I'm going to take another cow. No, I'm actually going to take another rice, and you'll see why in just a minute as I stand these guys up. It's my turn to go first. So I'm going to place this action here, which moves this one up 1 space. I take that money, and I place 1 more on each of those 2 adjacent spaces. And for that action, that means I get to spend rice, cows, and money in order to place out more workers. I'm going to spend those 2 rice barrels, or rice bunches, for 6 action points. That's 3 each. Each of these is costing 2, so 2, 4. No, I'm not. I'm going to hold on to one of those. 3, and 1 of these for 1 more is 4. To place those 2 in my available space, getting 1 money for each of them. So that's 2 money for me. And the AI does not take any action for either of the two yellow spaces, so that's it for that turn. All right, so then it's the AI's turn to select the action. Again, they're looking for the most money, which is 2 here and 2 here, starting from this corner and circling, so they are going to take this one. And just so I remember, I'm going to flip this every time it's the AI's turn, so I can remember it was them and not me that selected it. They don't collect the money just goes away, but they will add money there and there as normal. And they're trying to take this action with 8 AP, which means they're going to maximize by placing on 8, which is a problem because I would have loved to have done that myself. But now I'm hoping to have a lot of workers. I've got a cow here, I've got a lot of money, but actually the cheapest I can do is go here at 5. But if I go cheap at 5, they're going to be easier to get that 6 above me to get the points instead of me. So for sure, I'm spending that 3 cow. 3 cow and then 4, 5, 6. Do I want to spend all that money? I got lots of workers. I'm going to put 1 worker on a boat, 4, 5, like that. That's 6, means I get to place one of those there at 6. Good. And this should have gone up because we took a blue action. Now my turn. This is where I have some interesting options. I definitely want to develop stuff before the first harvest happens. I could go here to take that money so it doesn't go away, in which case they would then take the harvest action on their turn. Before I do that, let's see what they're doing next, because that's going to matter. They've got a 6. So if we come back here, if I take this turn now, they're going to be trying to use all 6, means they're going to take one of these 2 tiles. Either scoring on workers in the worker area, which I really should have done before I started placing things out, or this one that scores them 8 points if I have one of each thing. I don't care about that, so letting them take that's not horrible. But if I go there, they go there. If I go here, they go here. Yeah, that's not meaningful. I'd rather have the resources. So I'm going to come here, which means I get that money, placing 1 here and 1 there, which means that we are going to trigger a harvest event this round. I can start driving things up here. Having more workers right now is not that meaningful to me, except that I can get rice there. So I do want to drive some stuff up. I have this wheat for 3. I'd like to get some cows so I can start doing this and more workers. But getting rice for workers is also good, except I can always buy rice if I need to. Yeah, so I'm going to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 like that. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to place 1 there and I'm going to drive that one there. So now I'll get 2 sheep and 1 cow for every harvest action. Do I want to do another one? No. I don't, because I want more workers. Stopping there, they do nothing. Harvest action triggers. I get 2 sheep and 1 cow. Like that. And while it's my turn, no, that's fine. I'm going to stop there. That's good. AI is going here because there's 3 money there, which means that goes away, but they'll place 1 there and 1 there like that. They're trying to spend 6, which means they're going to take that one because I don't want them to have that one. Then I have sheep. That's 6 action, 7. I could put 1 there. I could get up to 8. 6 is easy, 7 is work, 8. I can only buy 1 thing. This gets me 2 resources. No, this gets me no resources. This gets me 2 resources. This could potentially start getting me money. This potentially gets me more actions here and here, but that's not great. If I do this now, I only have 1 worker, it doesn't score. This one scores building tiles. I don't have any. This one scores workers here, I'd get 5 points. I want to hold off on any of that. So I am going to focus here. So I'm going to spend 1 sheep. And, yeah, I'm going to get that for 2. It might be a waste of money, but right now that's fine with me. Okay. Then my turn. Hold on, that went up 1. I need workers badly. We go there, I take those 2. And I place 1 here and 1 there. This goes up. And I'm spending rice and cow. Yeah, is that going to be okay? Hold on. Because I want to be able to place here. Hold on. They did this already. So they're going to flip a card. 4 and 9. 4 gets them nothing here. 9's going to place there. So that's their column now. So I don't need to place anything unless I get 10. And that's not going to happen. Or 11 would be amazing. But that's definitely not going to happen. But I'm silly. I can go there, spend 1 to get another rice, because then I can spend 2 rice. Yeah, just 2 rice? Yeah, 2 rice to get 2 workers. And each of those gets me a money, so I get 2 money for that. And then, realistically, why not? He goes there. And I just realized I forgot. Sorry, this worker should have come back when I triggered that first harvest. And if I make that mistake, I will fix that in the subtitles, but I think that's true. All right, so placing them there. Hold on, that's not what I expected it to be. This one I made a mistake is actually not 1 resource of my choice for that. I get 1 resource for any row that's empty. So let's do that anyway to get a rice, because that's empty still, and spend that instantly while I'm still in this action to take 1 more of them. That's great. That's great. Okay, we'll stop there. Their turn. They're clearly going here, which puts that there and that there. We are going to trigger this event right now. They're looking at 4. There's nothing that's a 4 and a 9. They will place in that 9 spot. Like that. Now, what am I doing? If I put in this 5, I will be able to score on this at the end of the game. If I put into 7, I'll be able to score on that at the end of the game, which currently is not doing great, because that's the number of people. I have nothing. This is maxed rows. I have nothing. Otherwise, I can push to get to 11, can I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I could do it. Because that'll give me 6 points right now. Except then I'm out of everything. I am anyway. Yeah, let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This could be stupid. 10, 11 like that. Because then I can place out this guy here. And again, this could be a huge mistake. But I think I like it, because now we settle accounts. I get 4 for this one. He gets 5 for this one. I get 6 for that one, like that, which is not bad. Not bad. And then I'm going to take my turn coming here, which is going to trigger a harvest. I get this money. And I'm not, this is potentially stupid, but I'm not doing anything for development. I'm simply going there because that does trigger a harvest action, which means I get 2 sheep and a cow. But it also means that I get 1 of these back for free. And then I can spend money, 1, 2, to get this one back and 1 more of these back. That's all I have. I can't afford any more money. That's it. Also, I realized this should have flipped, that's fine. 2, 4, 7, which is gonna be a little bit of a problem. Also, when I place there, this and this should go out. I say that's gonna be a problem because 2, 4, 7 means he's gonna take this 2, one of these 4s, and one of these 7s. But that's not the end of the world right now. Yeah, I don't hate it. All right, then AI goes here. Those go there and there. He's taking 2, which is that one. Let me put that there, just that's what he's collected. Taking 4, Cal's money or Max's. I don't care about the Max's. The Cal money I might care about. And 7 means he takes the one that scores based on workers here or workers on buildings. And I'm getting good here, not so great here. Although tile 2, 3, 4. I could have 3. Yeah, but that requires lots of workers. All right, so he's going to take that one. And that means his turn is done, so he's going to do that. 6, 7. Then I'm going to use my sheep for sure. And I can do just a sheep to get this 6. I can do just a sheep to get this 6. Or, if I get this one, I'm scoring based on 3 people here, gets me 8 points. I can place a person instead to get this, which is 2 people here, gets me 7. I'm going to take that one for 2 sheep, which is 6 points, 3 and 3. I get that guy, and I score 8 points. So I'm at 18, he's at 20. Good, my turn. And I think I forgot to move that, like that. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, good. Okay, my turn. I don't know if it's worth it, but I want that. Because why not? Yeah, I'm going there because I also get two money for it. That goes up 1. We place another money here and here like that. Then I'm placing a guy there to spend 1 to get a rice. And then I'm instantly spending that rice to get my last guy. And then I might as well. I'm going to place that there again to get another rice. Spend that rice to get 2 points. So I'm at 20. I think so. Yeah, I think so. I don't like what's happening next, though. Don't like at all what's happening next. Because then he's gonna, whoops, that was me. Then he's gonna come here again, driving that one up. He's got a 6 and a 7, which means he's gonna take that 7 spot. Which stinks, because now he's winning this row. And he's also scoring off that top, which was bad planning for me. But, something is wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing a card, which I will put right there. Whoops, sorry. Somehow that didn't get shuffled in, but there is one more. So now that he's done that, this will flip there, which is a 3, 6. Now, what do I do? This is a problem. This is absolutely a problem. I need to place somebody. I'm gonna have to use that 5. Just so that I don't lose that column for the next scoring. So cow is 3, 4. Placing him there is 5. Like that. Which means I do get to place this one there. Except I'm not scoring on that row. But there's nothing I can do. I can't get to 10. Yeah, I think I'm in trouble this game, but we'll see what happens. Okay. Then, I can see that the next action, if I take a yellow one, is going to be a harvest. But I also see that if I go here, If I go here, then he's going to go here, and that's going to trigger that, and that's the end of the game. But if I go here, then he's going to go here, which extends the game and gives me more options. So let's do that. I'm going here. It's kind of meaningless. Gets me $1. Pushes this and triggers a harvest, which means I get 2 sheep and a cow. But that harvest happened after this action, so I can't use those cows anymore. I get at least 1 guy back, which is probably going to be this one, because that's a free resource rather than a moneyed resource. Then I will spend that 1 to take back. It doesn't matter where, this one, because at least that opens that space up. He does nothing. Whoops. Doing that, I should have placed 1 here and 1 here. Then he's going to come to this space, placing 1 thing there, 1 thing there, and that goes away. He does nothing. I can develop if I want to, but I don't have any resources to do so. And the next time we harvest is the end of the game anyway, so that doesn't help me right now. If I go here next, he can't place out. Yeah, if I go here next, he can't place because he's got a 3-6. If I go here next, he will take the 3 and the 4, scoring him 6 more points. So I need to come here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 places me there. Ideal, no, but it's worth it, I think. Yeah. All right, well, that's what we're going to do. That comes here. I take that. This place is here, this place is here. That goes up. So now we've got 1, 2, 3 harvest and 1, 2 settling of accounts. So that will trigger, and that will also end the game when it's done. I'm spending 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No. Hold on. I'm 1 short. Wheat doesn't do me any good. Green doesn't do me any good. If I do that, I don't have enough workers to place anyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 doesn't work. Grr. Nope. Changing that plan. Still doing what I planned to do. I come here instead. I take 2. Now I've got 3, 6, 7. I can get more, 8 or 9. This gets me 6 points and everybody comes back, but that doesn't matter. But it does, because he's got 2 workers here, and I've only got 2 workers here. So he's going to get the 5 points, and I'm only going to get 2. So that's 7, which is, this would be 9. That's 2 points good for me. If I do this one, I get 6 points, plus I get the workers back, which means I win that. So that's 6, 7, 8. Minus 2 is 6. All right? 6 and 5 gets me 11, and he gets 2. Means 9 total points. This is 9 and 2 is 11 minus 5 gets me 6 total points. So that means 3, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we're going to take that one. Like that. And he's going to take 3 and then 6. Means he takes either of the 3s, doesn't matter. And that 4. I don't think we're doing real well. Now we trigger the accounts. I get 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. He gets 2. Then he gets 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I get 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that triggers the end of the game. I didn't do great, but let's see how I did do. Starting with my school, I get 3 points here. 1, 2, 3. 6 points here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I also forgot to do this. So I should have gotten 6 points, and those two come back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Then from here, I have nothing in the top 2 rows, which is sad. From the station, we're going to add up for both of us now. In the top row is only him. He automatically takes that for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the next row, he has a value of 2. I've got 4 here, so I win that for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he gets 2. Then in the bottom one, a shame, because he gets 4 and I've got nothing. So I don't get anything even though I have 2. He gets 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I only get 2 simply for being there. Then I score 1 point for every 2 things I have left. I only have 1, so that's nothing, but I do have 4 workers left, so I get 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. For a final score of 56, which is actually the best I've ever scored in this game yet. But now he gets to score. 2 people is 6 each is 12, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3 is 12. So he's scoring an additional 24 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 53, 63. I lose 56 to 63. Wow. Both of us in this case scored our best. My previous high score was a 53, so I'm doing better every time. And his previous high score was a 61, which is now a 63. So they're also improving occasionally. Did I do badly? No. Now look, if I had played on easy mode, they would have done the exact same thing they did, except started with 15 points less, which would be 53 minus 5 is 48, in which case I did win on easy, let's call it that. But I still have yet to beat the game on standard mode. There's a lot going on here that I haven't figured out completely. I will definitely play a few more times before my final thoughts, but while I'm here at the table, let's talk about the components. Starting with Uchibacoya, famous for wooden bits. Their wooden bits in this game are the resources, the people, the, what am I missing? Rice, the money, 5 and 1, like this. Really, really great components. I continue to love their work with wooden components, but that's sort of what they're known for. So no surprise there, but I do love the wooden bits here. Now, this action pawn kind of gives me Scythe vibes. I wonder if it was inspired. These two, again, are just round pieces, but the sort of silk screening or printing on them does make them identifiable. The colors are very different, so it's easy to see what they are. The pawns, same thing. Again, great wooden components in this game. The card quality, now the cards are a solo expansion, so that's not part of the actual game itself, but good quality, very easy to understand what's going on. They're a little small, but that's fine. They don't need to be any bigger. The tiles here are nice and chunky. Artwork here is very, very nice. If you have played Amalfi, which is another game from the same publisher and the same designer, you might see some similarities here. The people kind of look similar. The way that the resources are printed, the iconography here is very similar to Amalfi as well. One other big thing I do want to point out here is that these boards are dual layered. Does it really matter here? Well, these slots for the workers absolutely is great to have dual layered because it holds them very nicely and so on. These sort of empty spaces for resources and money and workers, as well as these rectangles here, are a little bit less important because it's not like they're holding specifically those components. It does lock them in so they don't get knocked across the table, but all of this is sort of extra that doesn't need to be there. Do I hate that it's there? Absolutely not. I think it looks great and it works very well. But aside from these slots, these are kind of unnecessary but welcome additions, and it does mean that the board is nice and thick and sturdy, so no complaints. Again, the look of this game, very easy to understand the iconography, very easy at a quick glance to see everything that's happening in the game. No complaints at all from me on component quality whatsoever in this game. 2 more things to quickly show you. One, because I did pick this up as part of the pre-order they were running, I did also get the metal coins, or metal money. I guess they're not coins, they're bills, but the metal money, again, very, very beautiful. Nice sort of design of each of them. The color difference is nice to have, nice weighty metal. Now, granted, Uchibacoya, famous for their wooden bits. I do love the wooden money here. Do I prefer the metal over the wood? I don't know. The size is a little nicer because it does fit easier on your player board, but the wooden money looks great and it sort of goes with the rest of the game, so I'm not sure which I prefer here, but they are both there. The money, while not included anymore, the metal one, sorry, is still available as an additional purchase. So if you do prefer metal to wooden money, definitely grab it because these are really nicely made metal components. And finally, while I'm here, I do like to take a look at the insert. Well, for this game, that's the insert. It's a relatively small box. It's sort of like a Ticket to Ride with that much just like cut off of it. Nice box size, everything fits very nicely in the box, but there is no insert whatsoever to speak of. So all of the components are bagged and sort of just tossed into here, but realistically, there's not a whole lot of componentry here. So it does fit very nicely in the box very easily, as long as you don't mind, again, throwing things into baggies. That's basically it for the components. Meet me back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game itself. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. So here I have another game on my channel, not just from Uchibacoya, but also from designer Takeo Yamada, both of which are names that you might recognize from my video on Amalfi. Now, my Amalfi video was Amalfi Renaissance, which was the sort of redeveloped version by a new publisher, but this is the designer and publisher behind that game originally, and now we've got another game coming from that team. Now, Sapporo 1876 is a game that I had my eye on for quite a while, both as a fan of this designer and this publisher, but as a two-player only sort of back and forth, head-to-head kind of game, it's not something that was completely on my radar because there's no solo mode. Two-player games I don't get a whole lot of chance to play anymore these days. But mechanically, it always looked interesting to me. So when I saw the release posted for this game with the mention that not only would it combine with Sapporo to make it 3 or 4 players, but also that they were developing a solo AI that could be used to play this game as well, my light bulb turned on and I was very interested, and I had to jump right in on the pre-order. Now, I did have to get this one sent over from Japan as part of that pre-order. I was lucky that I had a friend who was willing to do that for me, but good news for all of you, before I get into anything about this game, if this game does look like something you'd be interested in, currently, as this video goes live, there is now a Kickstarter for another Uchibacoya game, Ostia, which I'm also very excited about. But that campaign also has a bunch of add-ons, and this game, as well as Sapporo 1876, are additional add-ons possible in that campaign. So if you decide that this is something that looks like something you might be interested in, head over to the Ostia Pirates campaign and check out this game there. But with that said, let me go ahead and get into how I feel about this game, because you're going to have to know something about this game before you can make any kind of decisions like that. So this is, at its heart, a very tight resource management action selection game. Very simple core. There are 4 main actions in the game, right? There are 2 on the sort of harvest side and 2 on this sort of financially based account kind of side. And with each action you take, you're going to need to spend a different type or different mix of resources to get action points, to use those action points, in addition to spending money at sort of +1 action point, or sending workers into your fishing boat at +1 action point to get these things done. So the 2 harvest actions are going to be sort of training students at the university to become workers for you. And the other one is sort of using those workers to develop the harvest or the sort of crop potential of your area of Otaru, meaning making rice, making wheat, making sheep, and making cows, or raising sheep and cows, and also sort of developing or growing your money alongside that. And I mention these both as harvest actions because, again, there are 2 tracks in this game tracking the harvest actions and tracking the sort of financially based actions and occasionally triggering events. So both of these are driving the harvest track and occasionally triggering the harvest action or harvest event, which, based on those development tracks that you've grown, will give you a certain set of different resources and or money to then use in future rounds. So the development action is going to be very important in growing what you get on future rounds, because if you don't have resources at any point, you can't take any actions aside from tiny little things by spending money and workers on the fishing boat. And this is where this sort of super tight resource management comes in, because aside from those harvest events that happen every couple of times that you take either the harvest or training actions, there's not much other way for you to get resources aside from money. And I'll talk a little bit more about money because that's an interesting aspect of this game as well. But the resources tend to only basically come from the harvest actions. Now, there are some worker placement spots that you can get in the other actions that I'll talk about in a second, where you can potentially trade resources to get more resources or spend money to potentially get more resources. So there is a little bit of flexibility that way, but for the most part, the only way you're getting these resources are through harvest events based on how much you've developed your sort of production area. And that's going to be super important. But then also looking at that school where you're training new workers, again, if you don't have workers, you can't place workers in worker placement spots. If you don't have workers, you can't place workers on those development tracks to get more resources moving forward. Now, you can only have one in each of those tracks, so you only need 4 maximum, but you're going to need some to place there. But more importantly, looking at then the 2 financially based aspects of the game or actions of the game, one of those is Otaru Station or Chuo Otaru Station, where you're sending off your workers to do business and sort of make money for your whatever, your development, right? So in order to do that, you need to place a worker on a location on the train station, and it stays there forever. So you definitely need to be taking this training action to get more of these workers so that you can leave them there to then score points later on in the game. And that is going to be really important. So taking these 2 sort of harvest-focused actions, or sort of basically production-focused actions, gaining workers and increasing development, and then ultimately triggering these harvest events to get more resources to do all of these things, including now the other half of the game are the 2 financially based actions. And the first one, as I kind of mentioned already, is that Chuo Otaru Station, where you're sending off workers to basically score points. This is going to be the main scoring aspect of the game, and you're looking at columns and you're looking at rows. And placing in those locations is going to cost a variety of action points to get those people out onto those locations at the train station. So you really need to make sure that you've got lots of the resources that you need for that area when you go there, plus some money, plus some workers to place on the fishing boats if you need a couple extra action points. But then you also need to think about where you're placing. Because just like the harvest action on those 2 other actions, the sort of settling of accounts event that's triggered by the financial actions is going to give you points based on sort of majority in the 3 columns at the train station. With the first one giving you 4, the second one giving you 5, and the third one giving you 6 points. Now, the way that works is whoever has the most in that column when the event is triggered will score those full points. Whoever has the second most will score half of those points. But you need to make sure that if you both have the same number of things, so if you both had 1 worker in that column, whoever has the worker towards the top, it means in the more expensive space, you're going to earn those points. So it's realistically more important when you place your first worker, if you can place them in the middle or the top space rather than the bottom space, you're more likely to score the full points for that column. But at the same time, while you're placing to sort of score these intermediate sort of column-based scores every time one of these accounts events is triggered, you're also focused on the rows. And the rows are going to be endgame scoring, and the rows are showing some kind of scoring goal that whoever has the most of the things matching that goal, who also has a worker in that row, will score 5 points at the end of the game. But what does that mean? That means I have to have a worker in that row to score anything at all. It means also that if I have a worker and I still don't have the majority in that row, I'm still scoring 2 points for that at the end of the game. So having a worker there is always going to be worth something to me. But then I need to figure out, where do I place the worker based on those endgame goals? What kinds of endgame goals? The number of influential people you have, the number of buildings you have, the number of workers you have on your board, things like that. The number of workers you've got sort of further up the development tracks are going to be the goals that you're trying to aim for at the end of the game. So when you're placing a piece out in the train station, it's not just a matter of thinking about where should I place to make sure I score the majority or have the higher placement for that column scoring. It also is make sure I place my workers in the rows that will be most likely to trigger me or score me the points at the end of the game based on the things that I'm collecting in the game. And then after that point, make sure I'm focused on collecting those things before the end of the game so that I can guarantee those points for myself. So this train station has a whole lot of really interesting reasoning about which location should I place and how can I maximize the points that I'm getting from every placement I place out, while also spending the fewest action points possible because, again, resources are very tight. And every resource you spend on one thing is a resource you can't spend on something else. Then the fourth action. The fourth action then becomes the sort of investment action. You're investing in influential people. You're investing in buildings that are being built. The influential people are giving you sort of mid-game scoring, instant scoring based on the current condition of the game. And these are really interesting, because some of them are going to score based on people you have in your area to use, the workers you have in your area. Some of them are going to give you points based on resources that you currently have. Some of them are going to give you points based on resources you don't have. There's one that says after you buy this, if you have nothing in your area, you score lots of points. And the more you have, the less points you score. Some of them just give you points and then give you something else. So one of them gives you flat 6 points and brings all the workers back from your fishing boat. They all score in very unique ways, and they're all going to sort of push you to aim to do certain things in the game while also, of course, focusing on the scoring conditions in the train station. But these mid-game scoring points are going to be way bigger, potentially, than anything you're going to get from the train station. And definitely anything you're going to get from the other two spots, because I didn't mention that, but the development one gives you 2 or 3 points per person at the top of each development track. And the school is going to give you a couple of points, 3 points, maybe 6 points if you can get all of those workers out of the school. And again, continuing doing that gives you 3 points, 3 points. So that could be big. But realistically, the points on these influential people that you can get in this action are going to be big points, usually 1 to 2 times bigger, so like 1.5 to 2 times bigger than any other points you're going to get. So if you can focus on getting these, you're going to do really, really well in this game, except that they're pretty expensive. And spending, again, resources on this means you don't have resources to spend on something else. And it's this huge balancing game about where can I spend all of the resources that I've got. And wow, puzzle, 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 puzzle. Because then also the other thing you can buy here, or spend action points here, is to invest in buildings. And the buildings are basically worker placement spots that you can place on once per time. And time means until it resets. And it can reset every harvest phase, except the harvest events only reset 1 worker, unless you pay for more at a cost of 1 per worker to pull them back. So these are resettable worker placement spots, but you can only place in them once at a time. But they're going to do things. They're going to give you money based on resources you have. They're going to allow you to trade resources. They're going to break some rules here and there, allowing you to place 2 things at the train station instead of 1, or these kinds of rules. In addition to, I didn't mention this yet, but the starting asset card you have at the beginning is potentially giving you one of these buildings and or a unique ability like this as well. So you've got to figure out how can you spend, because these buildings are a lot cheaper than the influential people. How do you spend action points early to get some of these things that give you specific bonuses or action abilities that make you better in future rounds, while then making sure to have enough actions at this location to buy some of the bigger, more higher, expensive action point influential people to score lots of big points? Because remember, this game doesn't go that long. As soon as 5 events are triggered, it's instantly over. And those events for the harvest are pretty much every other spot on the track. And the business one, I think, is every 3 or so. So you're looking at 10 to 15 turns to get this stuff done, which means you're only going to each location maybe 3 or 4 times throughout this game. And that means something, possibly 5. But you got to think about, how do I have the right amount of action points? How do I maintain resources and avoid overspending resources and overcommitting on one thing so that I then can't commit on something else later? Balancing all of this stuff, not just the resources, but also the timing about when can I get to different locations at different times to get different things done. And it's a very, very tight system that really makes you pay attention to timing, really makes you pay attention to resources. And then you have to pay attention to the fact that this is an action system similar to something like Scythe, where you can't take the same action 2 times in a row. So that means I can't do something twice. I have to do something in between. And wherever I place, I'm putting money on the 2 adjacent locations, which means I'm making those 2 locations better, because money is always a +1 action point that I can spend on things. But also, wherever I place, the opponent is also going to be taking the same action. So I need to time things not only to work well for me, but to go to places at certain times when the opponent is going to do worse at that location than if I went at a different time. So this balance of when to go, how to spend resources, what to focus on. Do I get more resources, more workers? Do I commit workers to places that then can't be committed to worker placement spots? Do I commit worker placement spots and get stuff, but then don't have the workers to place them at train station? There's a whole lot of interesting balancing going on in this game, and I really, really enjoy what's going on. I'm not sure I'm good at it, or at least not very good at it, but it's fun to try and figure out this kind of path through this very tight, very limited decision space that really does come together in unique ways. And the variability on the influential people and the buildings and the starting asset really do, and also the row scoring at the train station really does make for quite a bit of a different feel every time you're playing this game, because you're going to focus on different things depending on what the scoring goals are pointing you towards, what kind of resources you get, what kind of starting ability you get. And it really does keep this game fresh for being such a sort of streamlined, tight, small kind of game. And now there's an AI, right? Now I'm talking about this to you because there's an AI, because there's a solo mode. And how does the AI play? There are 3 different difficulty levels. Easy and medium are the same thing, except that medium starts with 15 points. And then difficult switches out some of these sort of lower level cards with higher level cards. I'm going to say right now, just starting with the difficulty, easy is pretty beatable every time. Medium I have yet to beat, but I'm always sort of within 5 to 10 points of the AI, which means that difficult blows my mind how I will ever be good enough at this game to win against the difficult AI, but I'll get back to that in just a second. Because this AI is a very interesting system. It doesn't take harvest actions, and it doesn't take, well, harvest meaning it doesn't take the school actions or the village development actions, which is interesting because that means every time I go there, I get to do something and they don't do anything, which is great. Except that every time I go to one of those, I'm pumping money into one of the financial actions, and they're always going to go where there's most money. So by doing that, I'm driving them to take a financial action. But if I take the financial action, they're going to go to one of the harvest actions and throw away all the money so that when I do go there, I don't have any money to spend on that action. So there's this balance to start with. And then the AI plays in such a way that you see the card, and it shows the amount of action points it's going to have to spend on its next action. And sometimes the AI is going to break the rules and actually take 2 or 3 actions at a financial location, whereas normally you're only allowed to take 1. But you can see what they're going to do, and you can see how many action points they have. And that's going to sort of push you to force them towards the train station or towards the investment area based on what you want them or don't want them to have at that location. Because remember, you're competing for locations at the train station, but also at the investment and the building space, they're scoring 3 points per building and 6 points per investment or influential person at the investment action. So if they get one of those spots where they get 3 actions and they go there and they get 3 tiles, that's a whole lot of points you're just giving them. So you have to really think about not just how you're doing things for yourself, not just how you're balancing the locations and the order of things for yourself, but also when is it okay for the AI to go to certain actions? Which actions should you be fighting against them more than you would in other places, and so on. And probably, I haven't played this multiplayer yet, probably this is quite a bit different than the multiplayer game, because in the multiplayer game you can see what resources the other person has, and you can sort of push around that kind of thing better than the AI is basically always going to do well at those 2 places. And we're basically going to be alternating back and forth between those places just because of how the money location and the action selection process works. So there's not like a ton of manipulation that can be done, but there's plenty that is there, and there's plenty to think about. And it really, really is a very tight game. I continue to push, and pretty much every time I'm playing, I've gotten better, but the AI keeps doing the same better that I'm doing. And again, always within less than 10 points, 5, 6, 7 points, which means the score, the economy in this game is super tight, super close, and it makes it feel that even though I've lost every single time I've played, because I didn't play easy, I started with medium and I've just been playing medium, and realistically, if I subtracted 15 points from every game that I've played, I've won every time in medium, or in easy. But even though I'm losing every time in medium, the experience of the game is fun, but also I'm so close to the AI that I can feel that sooner or later I'm going to win this game, and it just pushes me to try again and try again, try again. Is this the most amazing AI I've ever seen? No, but it makes this game play very well solo, and it's fun because I don't know that I'd be playing this game otherwise, so to be able to play this game and to be able to play with these mechanisms as a solo game makes me very, very happy. I'm very excited that I got to try this. I'd love to see how this plays a 2-player. I'd love to see how this combines with Sapporo to play at 3 or 4 players. This game is absolutely staying in my collection. As I mentioned before, if you're interested in this game, you should be able to grab one as an add-on in the Ostia Pirates campaign that's running right now. Big recommend from me on this one if you do like small, tight, action selection, resource management, economy kind of games with very close point thresholds. Definitely check this one out. I hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, I ask that you like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.